Today, we're going to tell you a bit more about kind of our journey, what we went through, how we kind of navigated within Heineken, a very decentralized organization, but also how we kind of embraced the AI and the journey we went with the functionalities in 360 and how we kind of make sure to meet the business needs with that. So but first, who are we? I'm Bas Roelofs, currently the Learning Experience Manager in Heineken. So we're really looking after kind of the ways of learning in the organization. And with that also the broader kind of shifts we want to make, and as well then the ecosystem that we just reviewed, what fits with that. And together I'm here with Jodi.
Yeah, good afternoon everyone. My name is Jodi, Josias, all the way from South Africa originally. Any South Africans here? Here we go. So yeah, and now currently based in the Netherlands, working with an amazing team, looking after learning experience for Heineken. Been with the company for just about 14 years now. And I'm very happy to be a partner or be partnered with 360.
Yeah, and today we're going to tell you a bit more about kind of the story behind the beer. So it's more than indeed just a big company that produces a lot of drinks, but we're kind of having a footprint in 190 countries. We have staff in over 85 operating companies. So very kind of decentralized model, because the power of the company really lies in the local markets. Because those people know the customers, those people know the consumers. So that's where we kind of was, the starting point where we had to deal with to make sure how can we engage all those 85,000 people in kind of the learning journeys, and making sure that we kind of could reach out to the different types of staff we have as well, to make sure that we also kind of meet the shifts that we want to make within the learning organization. So quickly talking about some of the challenges that we had. So we started a bit of the journey kind of more now a year ago. We're looking at kind of what are the shifts we want to make if it comes to L&D. One of the things that we saw was really the disconnection of the communities. So we had all those operating companies, we had learning teams in functions, but they were not really talking to each other. And that resulted in a lot of cost efficiency as well. A lot of kind of money being spent with external parties. For example, leadership development being developed over and over. So we had at one point 50 different programs for kind of frontline leaders. So we had to say this had to be more efficient. There's a lot of content already there, but people just don't know how to find it, how we can leverage that. Another point that we noticed is that learners felt overwhelmed. There was learning coming from global, there was learning coming from the functions, from the regions, also locally, compliance training. So from all the different angles, learners were kind of pushed learning, and when they were looking for something themselves, they could not find it. So we said, okay, we need to kind of really step up on this part. A third one that we had was a lot of inconsistency in the governance and capabilities. So because we had a global program, a global platform for learning, not everyone was trained on it, resulting in some markets kind of buying their own systems, or really kind of not knowing how to use the system and use it in a different way that really goes against kind of all the data we try to capture, or very much leading to a lot of inconsistencies. So we really had to kind of make sure there's one approach to do it. Everyone needs to have access, but we also need to make sure that we look after our learning community, so everyone is kind of up to speed and up to par of where we want them to be, so we can also go to them and be clear on what we expect from them. A fourth one was really kind of knowledge existing in pockets. Because we had such a big organization and such bright people all over the world, but it was sometimes very hard to really tap in to the expertise from the different colleagues that we had all over the world. So we want to make sure that we kind of shift it in a way that it's easier to identify where is our knowledge, where are our experts, and how can we really leverage them in sharing their content, sharing their knowledge, and making them part of the learning journey for kind of the broader organization. So with that, kind of want to explain a bit kind of the collaborative learning approach we want to do, and kind of the whole ecosystem of people we want to kind of bring together. So the first one was L&D. Kind of we meant here kind of global L&D, so we're the orchestrators. But we're not kind of the one in the ivory tower, so we kind of really had to kind of work together closely with other stakeholders as well. So a big important part were subject matter experts, or SMEs. A lot of the content in Heineken is developed from outside of learning, so these are kind of non-learning experts responsible for some of the delivery as well, development. So how do we really enable them? We had to work closely with the opco admins, so we could say kind of the learning powerhouses in our markets. And because they were really the catalyst, so they really owned the relationship with the learners. So in Heineken sometimes say we have consumers and we have customers. Customers you could see our bars, consumers are the people that are buying the beer. For us, the opco admins and the opco learning teams are our customers. We serve them for them to serve the consumers who are then the learners across the organization, because they are closer to them, they know what they need, so we need to make sure that we enable them. A fourth group was the business leaders, so kind of the sponsors. So very early onwards, we had to make sure that we involve kind of the right decision makers to really get the buy-in for the shifts we wanted to make, and as well to bring them along the journey on, as well making sure that later on we had to kind of, for example, change systems, that already have engaged with, for example, IT. We didn't know what we wanted to do and why we wanted to do it, and we also then knew, okay, what were the things they needed from us as well on this journey. And the last point, last group, I want to mention indeed the employees, so the end users. So we did not want to kind of directly engage with them because we could not be everything to everyone. That really kind of said we focus on our SMEs, we focus on our opco admins, but we want to make sure that they're equipped to serve eventually our employees. So what would you do? So we were looking for a platform to really enable kind of the shifts we wanted to make. One kind of underlying item here was really we wanted to go to a Glocal model. So it was not against, and not anymore global versus local. It was we need to kind of come across a kind of coherent ecosystem where everyone kind of share their parts in it, and also everyone can kind of collaborate in there and really get the most benefit out of that collaboration. So we did that by kind of creating a baseline. So we had to kind of upskill everyone in the use of 360Learning. We had different trainings for admins, for authors, for coaches. So we knew everyone that has a role in the platform, know what they can do, know what a training, what you can expect from them as well. And it was kind of a combination of just purely tool training with as well, then how do we see that role in Heineken? So that we also know that those people are all kind of aligned with kind of what we wanted to achieve with that. Another part of it here was as well that we had to train the SMEs. It was kind of a new thing as well. Often they were just kind of brought in by learning, but they also went kind of through the same training to really enable them to start creating content as well and get the help from the learning teams if they wanted to. Another shift we want kind of to make here, and I heard something earlier before in David's talk, was kind of moving away from just creating courses and content to really kind of maintaining the global excellence with kind of local expertise. So how can we really leverage that local expertise, see where the gaps are, and really kind of target those skill sets where we really need to step up our game. Because we don't need content for everything. If we're there on certain topics, let's not spend money and resources on that. Let's make sure that we really focus on the parts where we need content and we need to step up, and that the best people to know that are indeed our SMEs. How we did that was that we really had to kind of work together with the global team, together with the local and the regions. So we worked in there with an ambassador program, and I think that's the moment for me to hand over to Jodi, because he played a great role in kind of bringing that bridge along the way.
Yeah, cool. Thanks, Bas. So, the ambassador program. So I think it goes without saying that part of the solution to our problem was implementing 360Learning as our learning experience platform. But we knew that it was going to be quite a task in order to land this in the business. And the ambassador program that we launched was an enabler to land this in a way that still gave a lot of control to the local opcos. And how we did that was quite a unique way, in my opinion. I was fortunate enough to be part of the ambassador program before landing in this current role. And we had an ambassador, sort of a representative or change agent, if you want to think of it in that way, for every region. And their role was basically to create and build a community for each individual that had some area of responsibility and accountability in the world of L&D for their particular markets. And it was very social, it was very collaborative. There was a lot of sharing going on, a lot of best practices being shared, templates and so on, to really try and bring the 360Learning platform to life for everyone's operating company. And everyone was able to learn from one another, whether it was one particular region ambassador, working with other ambassadors in different regions, and everyone coming together to sort of share ideas. And we would meet very frequently to do that and then take it back to our different groups of responsibility. Ultimately then, when 360Learning did go live, we naturally knew that we are, as Bas mentioned, going to also rely on people outside of the L&D community. So other SMEs within the business would need to be called on as well. And as you know, there are multiple roles within 360Learning, so we needed a place that we could take them on the journey. So whether it was going to be an administrator, whether it was going to be a coach or an author, we needed a place for them to come and upskill so that they could learn about 360 learning and how to bring their roles to life within their particular markets. And that's where the Learning Academy comes into place. It was a global community where we could still allow operating companies to have creative freedom, but at the same time instill from a global HQ perspective quality standards, governance frameworks, so that whatever it is that they needed to implement to bring this to life within their particular operating companies, they were doing it in a way that still represented who Heineken needed to be as a global company. So that was the Learning Academy. On top of that, we also saw a need to really start embedding collaborative learning practices. As Bas mentioned earlier on as well, there was learning all over the show. Right? Thousands and thousands of pieces of content that were showing up in various different ways on various different platforms. Ultimately, the goal was to bring that all within the LXP, but at the same time, how could we also create scalability of certain elements? How could we ensure that we are not duplicating efforts? How could we ensure that we were also cutting costs in a responsible manner? Into the Collaboration Hub, a place where our entire learning community, regardless of whether you were a traditional L&D individual or an SME within the business, it was a place for you to come and ask simple questions, put up your hand and say, hey, I would like to raise this particular learning need. My operating company or my market has a particular request. Before I go and put money in take money out of the budget to solve this need, has anyone done something similar? And in a lot of cases, that has been the case, where people could adapt, and we have this internal ethos called Learn, Share, Reapply. And we were able, through the Collaboration Hub, to really bring that to life. So saving cost has become a massive, massive benefit to us because of this incredible feature. And up until today, I mean, Bas will share some statistics in a little bit. The statistics still blow my mind. And we'll share it with you in a bit. It's really great what this has done for us. But over and above that, it has really created a community where people now no longer just speak to one another over email or over Teams messages, for example. They're actively using the platform to engage with one another and being able to share expertise, tap into resources, as Bas mentioned also earlier on, that previously would not have been considered as accessible. But through the Collaboration Hub, it has now become a reality for us. AI. We all know and we all love the AI features within 360. I'm not going to spend too much time on here. This is just a visual to show you how we've been making the best of it. But for us, the biggest game changer, and I'm sure it goes without saying, has just been speed to market. Being able to realize actual learning needs impacting the business and being able to do that in a speedy fashion with still having the responsibility on quality and governance on what's being put out. It's been a real game changer for us. And then just lastly, want to share with you a little bit on how we've also managed to still remain human in this entire process, because it's been a massive change journey for us. Very exciting one though. But at the tail end of last year, we launched something to really incentivize, recognize, and reward individuals who have made a great impact in creating the success story that 360 Learning, in partnership with Heineken, as our new LXP has made possible for us. We launched something called the annual, what we're coining now as the annual Global Learning Experience Awards. And it's not for L&D people, it's for people who have contributed to what now is the ecosystem within Heineken. And we recognized all of their efforts, from how they've set up their group pages, from the type of content that they've leveraged from global, tailor-made it into their own for their specific markets. We recognize all of those efforts. We look at a lot of metrics over and above, the traditional completion rates and smile sheets and so on. We're looking at real, true engagement, and 360 Learning has allowed us to have those insights now because of the data metrics that they are tracking. So that allows us to then put together lots of areas within the Experience Awards for us to then create award categories, and we were able to award people based on that. And then Bas, over to you for the results.
Yeah, thanks, Jodi. Because indeed, kind of where did it bring us so far? So we're currently in this for an 8-month journey since go live. And we see already kind of a couple of behaviors shifting. So one of them, for example, is the eliminating of the silos and the skills gaps. We see in the collaboration hub, we see kind of opcos reaching out to each other. We see also functions reaching out to other functions. Like, let's say, for example, supply chain working with commerce on kind of how to optimize certain processes. We see a lot of kind of cost efficiency as well, not only in the redesign of content, but also in streamlining of the ecosystem in operating companies. They need kind of an example, we just Jodi mentioned, we had the Learning Awards, but in the process, we had one of our top 10 opcos that came to us before kind of we really started the implementation, saying with a whole kind of wish list, this is all we want, otherwise we won't move. So that was a bit of a kind of stakeholder management we had to kind of do with them, but eventually that was the operating company that won Best Launch Campaign. They really kind of shifted their mind, they saw the benefit, they kind of get rid of some of their partners locally, but they saw kind of the benefit of moving to a kind of a global system, leverage in, and be part of the broader Heineken ecosystem instead of kind of fighting them by themselves. Third one was indeed, Jodi already mentioned, the time efficiency, speed to market. Because especially for the subject matter experts, the starting point and where do you start with developing a course, so defining your learning goals, designing the flow, that was really optimized with the AI course builder. We told them the AI course, it's not kind of ready for launching, but it's really your starting point. And the guided creation really helped them to have a good starting point to work with. And it was for them kind of in the past a bit kind of a scary thing, you could say. They were a bit scared on where do I start, do I do this? So that's where it kind of gave them a good jump start, and then started building on that. And if they needed help, they still had the learning teams to tap into. But that was really kind of speeding up the process for us to fill the gaps we needed. The last one we need is then leveraging the internal know-how. It already came back a couple of times, but it is to really identify where does our expertise sit. Because one of the things we also enabled was, for example, the learning needs identification. So learners can raise a learning need, say, hey, I want to learn on a topic on this. And we also enabled that option in there to say, okay, who do you want to learn it from? Kind of give us the kind of your expert you think you want to get involved in this topic. So this way we also are able to identify subject matter experts who were never on our radar or even on the radar of certain functions because they were hidden in an operating company for them. So this really helps us to share broader and really kind of highlight the pockets of expertise that we have in the organization. And how did we kind of see that coming back in numbers? First thing, for example, in 2 weeks' time, we already saw 50 different courses and paths being shared in the collaboration hub. So this was actively opcos reaching out to each other, functions reaching out to each other, saying, hey, I want something on this, do you have something? And it also really helped that with the AI translation option, that because a course was in French, we can easily translate it now in Spanish. It just saves so much time for a team to just do the review of the translation and having to start all over from scratch. And you can still bring in kind of your local nuances if you need to, but you don't have to kind of get fully back to the basics for every course you're creating. We had over 400 people trained. We already mentioned it, all the different roles. So we really had to make sure that everyone was trained before they were allowed access in. That was kind of one of the ground rules that we had, and we're still quite strict on this. First complete your training, and then you kind of are free to go in the platform. We have a lot of new courses being created, so it's a nice thing to see, but I think as well the challenge that was just brought on by Dave in the previous talk, we're still in the journey. So the next step is to see what is happening with that content. Is it really kind of landing right? Or do we kind of need to kind of give more guidance on how do we make sure that we don't overflow the learners again? Because we spend a lot of time of reducing our portfolio the moment we kind of move to 360Learning. And we don't want to get back to kind of an old kind of courses popping up everywhere. But that's kind of for us in the next stage of the project. We had a lot of learning needs raised that I already mentioned. But I think for us the main thing that we saw it being impactful was by the end users, the learners. So we saw 86% of a higher engagement of learning, consuming content in 6 months than we had in a full year of a previous system. So that was for us really the trigger, say, okay, the system's landing well, we're on the right track, and we see the learners now coming back as well. We're now in the stage of really kind of finishing up the last parts of kind of the implementation of what we designed in the beginning. And the next step going forward will be very much focused on, okay, how do we make sure that we kind of keep that retention of learners coming back as well, and make sure that we optimize the KPIs in our portfolio. So it's an ongoing journey. We're not there yet, but I think we're had a very good start so far. I'm very happy where we are. questions?
Thank you. Wonderful, thank you for sharing your story so far. And it's fair to say, so 7 months implementation. Where's Alistair? Stand up, Alistair. You hate this, I know you do. You hate this, but Alistair, you've been a great partner to Heineken, throughout, and I think as well your guidance, expertise, collaboration. But it's not just about one person; it's the entire team, and I think this has been a great example of teams coming together and supporting one another to deliver what ultimately is a huge organisational change. So, based on that, has anyone got any killer questions for Jodi, Bas, anything that they've talked about today that you want to dig a little bit deeper into? Don't be shy. Phil, come on, I'm gonna do my roving mic, just so everybody can hear you.
Thank you very much, Mike. And thank you both as well for a wonderful depiction of your story. What I really liked was the Learning Awards bit. That really stuck out for me in terms of I suppose my question is, did that drive the behaviours that you wanted, and did that raise the quality of the content that the SMEs were creating off the back of that?
Yeah, maybe I'll take. So, to answer your question, the proof is in the pudding, and it will have to take a little bit of time to really realize if it does do that. But I think in the short term, because we've only been live for, what is it now? 8 months? 8 months. And we launched the Learning Awards at the tail end of last year after just being live for about 6 months. So what we did with that was, it was a pilot, but the intention there was to recognize, reward, and incentivize those who had gone above and beyond our expectations with the way that this landed in the business. It's been phenomenal to witness, and we needed to do something to recognize that. And the goal now is to obviously have that as a standing point going forward so that annually we can recognize these efforts. And again, I just want to mention that it was not focused on the L&D community, but rather everyone who had a hand to play in building this ecosystem that exists now. So hopefully we'll see much better content creation now coming forward that targets specific skills and needs, because now people also know that, not to say that we dangle the carrot in front of them, but now they know that there is recognition for these types of efforts. It's something to work towards. It's accolades that you can also localize in your particular opco. So you don't have to wait for HQ to run the awards and then after that it's done. You can then take all the assets that we've created, personalize it for your particular market or your opco and celebrate it there, shout about it there, so that your learners in your market can also reap the rewards that your learning and SME partners have created.
Awesome. I think there was another hand as well. Did I see another hand? Joe, I'll come back to you. Sorry. Am I right? Can we do a bit of teamwork here?
Excellent start, gents. A lot of what you said I completely agree with. My name's John. Because you've started the engagement now and you've got the SME at the forefront, what do you think the challenge is moving it forward? What will the challenge be? Because I know I've got an idea. I've seen it in my business, but what do you think the challenges are going to be?
Yeah, I think for us, one of the challenges, especially with engaging the SME community, is kind of holding on to kind of our design principles of, for example, getting everyone trained and really make sure that there's no kind of workarounds, because we had been a company of a lot of workarounds before because there was a lot of freedom locally. So really kind of strict to that guidance. So it will be kind of an ongoing journey of keeping the community engaged. It's not that we're now finishing project mode and kind of leave it up to that. It is kind of what we prepared for it, kind of we sowed the seeds, and now we kind of need to kind of keep taking care of it as well, for the community to keep coming back. There was a big shift where we noticed that people now know us by name, so they know how to find us as well, but we also then make sure that if any kind of person moves, that a new person gets onboarded properly, that they really kind of keep that guidance that we gave these people in the kind of the people so far in the onboarding journey, that we kind of keep that quality going forward.
Yeah, maybe also just to add to that, and it doesn't mean that because you've got all the governance and the frameworks in place that it's going to be smooth sailing. I mean, we see it on a regular as well, where from time to time you have to intervene and just bring people back to say, listen, remember, this is the global standard. This is the quality that we need to aim for at all times. So it doesn't just start and end with putting frameworks and governance in place. You've got to also stay on top of it as well. So monitoring becomes part of the job.
Awesome. Yeah, great question. Joe. Oh.
Thanks for sharing your story. Have you got any advice on how you've engaged your SMEs in the first place?
Yeah, so what we learning in Heineken is organized that we had formal organization is organized that we have both the learning teams in the operating companies as well through the functions. So we did engage closely with the function as well as with the global HR managers that we have to kind of identify who are kind of your key stakeholders if we're talking about kind of development. We are also have a parallel kind of pillar in our global learning team, which are the global learning business partners. So they own the learning agendas of the global functions. So that's what kind of our starting point as well. So kind of bring in who are your kind of knowledgeable people that you want to leverage for content building. And from there on, okay, ask that person, who do you want to include? Because you then have probably connection with someone in the region or in a function locally. So that's kind of where we kind of building that community. So we don't vet anything, okay, you're allowed as an SME and you're not. Everyone that raised their hand say, I want to become an SME because I think I have something to share, then we're willing to bring them into the system.
Awesome. Seems to be a lot of questions happening on the left side of the room. Any wonderful, wonderful. Thank you.
That was a great session. Thank you so much. Just rewinding, I mean, Heineken's such a dynamic business, and in my experience of global organisations, you've got different levels of maturity across the globe. So how did you engage and recognise that different divisions within the organisation were ready for this change? And the second part is those that weren't ready, how did you bring them along? Where was the resistance?
So just to play that back, who were the laggards? Yeah, who were the ones that you had to drag kicking and screaming? Yeah.
So, yeah, you're 100% spot on. I mean, it's a massive organization with over 85 operating companies under our name. And for me, being part of the ambassador program, I got really close to seeing where the laggers are, so to speak. And trust me, I looked after the entire AMI region to try and bring this to life. I was the one that had all of the laggers. It was, no, I'm not kidding, it was tough. Because week after week, Bas and the rest of the team who was sitting in HQ at the time, I'm sitting in the South African opco, I'm looking at the statistics coming out every week, and my team is way behind everyone else. And I have to ask the tough questions, guys, what's going on? Why are we not getting on top of things? And unfortunately, you have to have very difficult conversations sometimes. People often also just flat out ignore you because they're not invested in the change for reasons that you are not privy to. You don't know what's going on within the political climate within that particular country, perhaps. And turns out that there were some instances in that regard. But the most important thing is to understand that you are going to have that. You're not going to have 100% of every operating company on board from the get-go, but you need to create the vision and bring them along the journey. So with us, the ambassador program was very important because it required those who were going to lead it to really own that leadership journey, to take those people along you, because even today, as great as a success as that ambassador program was, we still have operating companies who haven't even bothered to put a page together. That's the harsh reality in a big company like ours. But also it comes with understanding that capacity might not be there. So we have to also look at numbers. So we've got to look at headcount. Some of our operating companies don't have a HR function. We have finance people building learning and building capability on the systems. They're doing the best that they can. So we have to also have a little bit of give and take. So it's just a matter of really understanding your business, not trying to be everything for everyone, but rather just making sure that you're adding value where you can. And having tough conversations, unfortunately, is going to be part of the journey, especially if you're going to implement this for a big, massive, decentralized company.
Yeah, maybe to add indeed on then the difference on kind of maturity, because that's indeed definitely the case. And throughout kind of the design process on kind of what's really needed, as well as kind of shaping the requirements that we need for the system, we also involved our kind of top users. So top users from our previous system. So we know, okay, they know well what they want to achieve, what they want to leverage it for, just to kind of understand their reality. So we did a couple of working sessions with them. And then we also kind of look, okay, but then we have only the top users. Let's also look at middle users and low users. So and really understand reality from all three levels. So that was very helpful for us to kind of bring the people along. Because indeed we did have very mature organizations as well. Because the markets for Heineken can be very different. We have markets where we may have 25 FTE, and we have markets with 18 to 20,000 people locally. So those people have bigger learning teams than we have at Global. Those people are way more mature than we are at Global. So how do you kind of balance that as well? So that was as well for us important to define the framework, but also then the freedom in the framework. And I think in Heineken it's also quite common to hear, make sure that they take the framework and not the freedom only. So that's kind of what we had to make sure that, okay, they know where they can differentiate. We had to make some exceptions for very large operating companies. But only after kind of close consultation, why do you need it, and is there not another way, or what is kind of what's blocking you kind of currently if you would do it like this? So there was this conversation we had to do it, not always the easiest. And also then after launch, how to kind of bring up, for example, some markets that stayed behind. One of them was a small market in the Americas, where the admin did not finish the training yet. And at some point we said, okay, we just go live, you're not trained, sorry, but your learners will see an empty page. That's what we eventually communicated as well to the people directors locally, say, hey, so it can be it. There can be different reasons why you don't want to invest the time in it. That's fine for us, but at least the learners can experience from the rest. But this market had 80% completions within the first 2 months. So it's 80% activation of learners in the first 2 months. So the learners were looking for content. The learners wanted to learn. So us going back to that market saying, hey, these are your activation, your learners want something, that was them for really the kind of the eye-opener and kind of say, okay, we might need to kind of step up and want to do something more, but then can you please then connect us with someone else that can help us in this journey, because we don't know exactly where to start. We did the training, but they had some problem, for example, on running campaigns. So that's where you can then as well bring the community together to really help each other out as well.
Wonderful. Right, I think we're about time, so please, thank you to Bas and Jodi for sharing that journey.